My name is Julian Canetti. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Strategic Partnerships for the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, or as we just say, CalAsian. But today I want to kind of go over why we're here today. The growing middle class and emerging consumer markets of Pacific Rims, the Pacific Rim countries such as China, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on, now account for about a quarter of the consumer product consumption worldwide. California businesses specifically added value food and beverage products are hot commodities in these markets. We're here today to gain new insight into these business opportunities, uncover and access vital support programs and services, or just make some valuable connections. I know we're a little bit late getting started here. Everybody was kind of connecting out there in the lobby, and as you're with chambers or business organization, when you do these events, you say, well, hell, sometime we got to get started here, guys. So the networking has to stop and the learning has to start at some point. So again, didn't mean to cut everybody short out there, but we didn't want to get started today. But that's an important part of these events too, are those connections that are made with other business owners. The net result is for you to take away actionable business intelligence for helping your firm be successful in selling into and satisfying the aspirational demand of the Pacific Rim middle class consumer. These consumers are California's next gold rush. Today we have a number of guests, and as I'm reading through the bios, the international trade team gives me the bios, and there's so much knowledge there and talent and experience on these the speakers that we have today. They will all talk about overall opportunity in these markets, how to use data to prospect for those opportunities, and finally panelists who will share their first-hand knowledge of program services and customer channels that you can use to connect to be successful in selling into these markets. As I said, it's a pleasure for the CalAsian Chamber, myself, I know our team, our international and global initiatives team, to be here today. And I don't know, where's Sam at? Sam kind of hides. He's the mastermind behind all of this, but Sam Griggers, I do want to thank him. He's the director of our economic development programs, more importantly of international trade and global initiatives. And so Sam and his team and Ja and others and Kathleen do a wonderful job of putting this thing together. And not only doing things here domestically, here on stateside, but also they do a lot of stuff internationally as well. But to welcome us here to Fresno, I'm pleased to introduce the Honorable Supervisor from the 1st District here in Fresno County, the Honorable Brian Pacheco. He is currently Supervisor for the 1st District of Fresno County, which is, I believe, the west side of Fresno County. But more importantly, he is a 4th-generation family farmer and dairyman here in Fresno, California. Please, Supervisor Pacheco.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning and welcome to Fresno County, the heart of agriculture in California. And also I'd like to welcome to your 4th annual How to Do Business in the Pacific Rim. We're here today to learn how to participate in the global marketplace where we grow our local food and manufactured products. The expansion and diversification of your company's consumer base will create jobs, increase profits, and provide California products worldwide. And I have a little bit of a first-hand knowledge on that because, as I said, I'm a 4th-generation dairyman, and prior to being in elected office, I just stepped down as chairman of California Dairies. And those of you that may or may not know, California Dairies is the #2 milk cooperative in the United States. It's the largest cooperative in the state of California. We make 1 million pounds of butter a day and 2 million pounds of whole milk powder. And 10 years ago, less than 1% of our product was exported overseas. And today, 40% of our product is exported overseas into the Pacific Rim. So it was a tremendous learning experience for our company, but I can assure you, once you learn the ins and outs, it'll be very, very worthwhile. So I hope you can learn today and have the same success that our company has experienced over the last decade. So enjoy your stay in Fresno County. Well, we're proud to be the world leader in the production of food and fiber. And again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a few minutes with us this morning and welcome everybody. And I can truly say out of that 1 million pounds of butter, I know I have 240 of them. Just saying. I love butter, right? Everything's better with bacon and butter. You know, our next elected official who we asked to join us and say a few words is Senator Andy Vidak. And, you know, I met the senator just after he was elected and came to office to the Senate. And, you know, it was interesting because we were talking and, you know, we're talking policy issues, but we got international, I was telling him our international trade program, and he was sharing to me how, I believe he's a cherry farmer, and he was telling me how the amounts that he ships out to Asia. And I think this year you were saying 90% of your crop went overseas. So he's definitely an individual who understands why we are here today and some of the opportunities that exist and still the continued growth in that market. More importantly, I think from my side is that, you know, we see 80 assembly members, 40 senators come through the state capitol every year, but it's always a pleasure to be able to work with one that understands business, understands the needs of business, and understands the things that we need to put in place to make sure that our business community continues to grow and that all of our businesses take advantage of the opportunities that not only here in the States, but also internationally. So please join me in welcoming Senator Andy Vidak.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to Fresno. I got to talk to a few of you or as many as I could when you all came in. Some of you I know, and some of you, again, welcome to Fresno. This is going to be a great, I was looking at the program. I wish I could stay here all day and see it because, but they did promise it was going to be taped and maybe come out in mid-January. And so I'm going to be able to see all these panels because you got some awesome people to talk to you all today about this. Yeah, California is the #1 export state in the nation and #1 state that exports into the Pacific Rim. Myself, I was in produce sales for 7.5 years. Back in the late 90s, we were exporting broccoli crowns into Hong Kong and Japan. I've sent honeydew melons into Japan. I actually imported asparagus out of Mexico into California, and then we would export it into Switzerland and all over the United States. So I've been doing it. 2 years ago, yes, over 90% of my cherries went to the Pacific Rim. Some of them ended up in Australia, 75% ended up in Japan. This last year, we had a little bit lighter crop, a little different quality. I didn't get to go as far as I wanted to into the Pacific Rim with most of the product because we just didn't have the quality. But it's exciting every April to see the folks come out to my branch and start looking at my crops. That's exciting. When people travel across the oceans to come to my little farm and come see how those Vidak cherries are looking this year. So this year, thank God, it looks like we're going to get some more rain. We've had some great dormancy as far as the crops and the tree fruit. We should have some excellent quality coming into next year. And again, I can't wait to watch this tape. It's going to be fabulous. Thank you for all you do, and can't wait to see the tape. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for all the good work that you do for us up in Sacramento, for all Californians, and not just for the district. So thank you. You know, we do a number of these programs throughout the year. They're not possible without the generous support of numerous sponsors, supporters, partners, and community partners that we engage throughout the year. So real quick, bear with me. I need to thank them, right? It's kind of like got to do the commercial break here. So California Bank and Trust, Euler Hermes, Union Bank were our sponsors this year, for today's event. And please join me in thanking some of our supporters and partners for sharing not only their expertise, but also some of their contacts in assisting us in putting this event together. The Ministry of Commerce, People's Republic of China, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, JETRO, the Japanese External Trade Organization, COTRA, U.S. Department of Commerce, both the International Trade Administration, and Commercial Service, U.S. Department of Ag, Rural Development and Foreign Ag Service, U.S. Small Business Administration, Office of International Trade, California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, California China Office of Trade and Investment, Centers for International Trade Development, California Center, California Manufacturing Technology Center, California Partnership for San Joaquin Valley, Cognitive Global Solution, Fresno County Economic Development Corporation, Mannix Consulting, Port of Los Angeles, Trade Connect, Port of Oakland, Sunworld. I do want to thank some of our local chambers here, the Fresno Area Chamber, the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and others who assisted us in getting the word out about this event today. So please join me once again in thanking our event sponsors, supporters, and partners. Give them a big round of applause, please. Oh, I forgot a few. Wow, there's a second page here, I'm sorry. The Nisi Farmers League and Fresno State University and the Fresno Community and Economic Development Department. Also, and a special recognition, and some of you guys know these individuals, Brenda Quintana, Cheryl Lynn, Manuel Cunha, and Mike Dozier here at the university for all their behind-the-scenes guidance and support that they gave the organization. So moving on to our industry keynote speaker, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce Tomo Naito. He's Vice President of International Sales for Sun-Maid, I believe, is that? Yeah, for Sun-Maid Growers of California. I don't know. Tomo, did you bring raisins? I love raisins. I mean, yeah.
I did not.
Those high energy snacks, Sure. You popping them through it'll keep everybody awake through the whole session here today. So, but really, a few things about Tomo, and I got to meet him briefly this morning, and very impressed, and what he's done, and looking forward to his comments this morning. Tomo is originally from Tokyo, Japan. He studied at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where he received his bachelor's in economics with a minor in history. He then completed his MBA with a concentration in international business at Virginia Tech. He joined Sun-Maid in February 2005 as Director of International Sales, which included the development and execution of strategic planning and daily operations associated with marketing and selling of Sun-Maid brand products in Asia and Oceania. In 2012, he was promoted to Vice President of Sales. So please join me in welcoming Tomo Naito. Tomo?
I came here about 11 years ago from Baltimore, and I still remember the day when I moved my family here, and my kids were still 4 and 2. I have 3 boys, 4, 2, and 2, at that time. And I remember my older boy trying to pick up our suitcases at the baggage claim. 11 years later, right? We're still here in Fresno, but I didn't have high expectations because I was worried that life in Fresno would be very much different from life in the East Coast, which was the case. But we have a saying in Japan, or in Japanese, which is "Sumeba miyako," which means, literally, which means, if you live, you'll like it, right? And we love it here. We just absolutely love it. So, I feel we're part of the community, and it's nice to be able to, or for myself, to promote and market the crop that's so dear to a lot of people, local peoples, to their livelihood and hearts. So with that, let me start the presentation. So this is a slide we normally show to guests that come to our plant. I like this slide because it tells the person everything they need to know about Sunmade. We're a co-op. We have 700 growers, approximately. You could see the map of California. That's where the raisins are grown and made. And this is who we are. So this is the slide we usually start when somebody comes to our office for a tour or if they want to know about Sunmade. So this is our plant. We operate the world's largest dried fruit plant. We process about 100,000 tons of raisins per year. And in addition to that, we pack other dried fruits like prunes, cranberries, mangoes. We bring that to our plant for repackaging, and we sell that under our brand. So this is our facility. For those who haven't been to our facility before, this is about 15 miles south of Fresno. The highway that you see on the left is 99. So we're right before Kingsburg, downtown Kingsburg. We have a market there, so we do sell Sunmade goodies if you would like to come and buy something. So we're celebrating our 103rd anniversary. We export to 50 countries, primarily to Asia, Europe, South America. Those would be our primary markets. Of course, US and Canada, of course. 40% of the volume is exported. And people consider Sunmade as a consumer brand company. But as you can see, we're 50% retail and 50% bulk, which the bulk meaning it goes to the industrial customers like bakeries and biscuit companies. So this is where it all starts in Kingsburg for us, or the Valley, Central Valley. And it's funny because all of these countries that you see here is about 5,000, 6,000 miles away. Well, it's more costly to inland freight a container from our plant to Oakland than to ship to China in a container, which is kind of mind-boggling to me. So this is a portrait done in 1915. Lorraine Colette Peterson posed for this picture, or portrait. And we've been using this logo pretty much since. So this is where our brand started. We actually started marketing our raisins in 1915, or maybe earlier. But this is a picture of the Panama Pacific International Exposition from 1915. So the girls that you see here are the original Sunmade girls, and they're wearing blue bonnets because they were wearing blue bonnets back then. Now you know them wearing red. At this exposition, we distributed samples of raisins for people to consume. So we did that about 100 years ago from today. Now this is the same expo, but it's my understanding that this is the only structure remaining from that expo. So things have really changed. So this is where I was supposed to start. So again, I've been dealing with international business for prior to Sunmade. I've been working for a small company importing ingredients, primarily to the confectionery industry, about 8 years prior to joining Sunmade. So I do have a little bit of international background, but this is a poster from, or an ad we did way back when in China. We had an office in China in Shanghai. And if you look at it very closely, it says Shanghai on the right. So it talks about a good snacking, and its raisins are really good for baking. So we were promoting raisins back then as well. This is a picture from 1927, a little history. So we were shipping raisins to China and repacking them in our brand boxes. So we were hand putting them in the boxes, and this is a picture of that time. So where do we ship to? So we ship to, I kind of rank them in order of where we ship. Japan is by far the number one. As an industry, California industry, Harvey, hi. He belongs in the raisin industry too. So, but for the industry and as well as for Sun-Maid, Japan is our largest market by far in Asia. And from second to number 10, very close, at least for us. So depending on the year, they may change. Just a little bit about some of the markets. Japan is a bulk market, so most of our raisins that go to Japan are for the industry. About 80% of the raisins consumed in Japan is for baking. South Korea, very much similar to Japan. And then China is a mix. Taiwan is a mix. Philippines, that has a tremendous influence from the U.S. So a lot of raisins go to the Philippines, despite the size of the country and the disposable income. And UAE, United Arab Emirates, you might consider that as a Middle Eastern country, and but I just put it in there for so you could see. So what do we do now? So I just kind of assembled some of the promotions and ads that we do in the Asian countries, starting from China. So this is a billboard that we took from a mall. It's a picture of a billboard. And if you remember, the earlier poster is very different. It's very modern. The girl is modern. We're trying to associate or try to grab younger generation's attention. So we do a lot of in-store promotions as well. So this is, I don't know which chain this is, but as you can see, we do a lot of, we try to have a visible presence so that people can see that it's Sun-Maid. Promotions like these used to be very inexpensive, but now in China it's very expensive. We tried to have raisins sampled by consumers because China is a raisin consuming. Yes?
As you said, the store promo is very effective. What's the cost on average for an in-store promo in Japan?
In Japan, we don't do a lot of in-store promotions in Japan as far as China is concerned. It depends on the retailer. If it's a major retailer, it could cost tens of thousands of dollars.
For one store?
For one, no, you won't. Yeah, you.
Stores.
Yes. So I believe this is like, let's say, Carrefour or Walmart or somewhere like that. If that's the case, you can't only pick one store. You have to do like 20 stores or 40 stores or 60 stores. So it becomes very astronomical because you can't only do it in one store.
Well, then, yeah, I was just wondering on average what it was per store. Our company, we do in-store demos,
Uh-huh.
and I know what it costs per store. I don't want to add it up total.
Yeah.
I'd get scared.
Yeah, I just know the total and not the per store. And I guess depending on the store, I guess they rank it A, B, C, D in some locations or some countries, and the A's where they get higher traffic is more costly than the C and D stores. So going back, in China they produce raisins, which is called green raisins, which is very different from California raisins. California raisins are sun-dried, whereas the Chinese are wind-dried. But the taste is very different. The appearance is very different. So the consumers have been eating green raisins for a long time, but not California raisins. So we need to kind of go out and tell them and show them that there is a difference, even though they're both dried, that these raisins are different, and that's why we have sampling, etc. So this is Hong Kong. Again, we do in-store promotions in Hong Kong as well. The labeling laws in Hong Kong is different from the Chinese, which make it very, very difficult for us to do business in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is very unique in that respect because they have their own regulations. So for us, it's a very challenging market. Indonesia is a very interesting market because Indonesia has the third largest population in Asia after China and India. So we think it's a growing market. So we try to do various things in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, we do trade shows, we do in-store merchandising, as much as we could do because there's a first mover advantage to everything, I think. I don't know if I could say this, but there is. So you want to go in when things are inexpensive to promote. Like for instance, if you try to do something in China now, it's pretty much too late. But for up and coming countries, it's still, I think there's a cost performance thing. So the cost could be low, but your output could be very, very good. So Indonesia is an interesting market. So earlier, I think I said that raisins going to Japan is mainly used for baking. So as a company, we try to promote our raisins to bakers. So this is an example of our brochure from our last seminar, which was done in June 2015. We invite all the major bakers to our seminar. Raisins are very well accepted in Japan, so they know raisins. But what we want, what our intention is for the bakers to continue to use raisins and come up with new ideas. So we send a chef, a pastry chef or a baker, well-known baker, to do seminars in Japan. And by doing so, the bakers themselves don't have to travel to the US or travel to Europe. So there's a benefit to them. So we do this every year. This year we did it in cooperation with the Green Valley Pecan Company. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's just very cute. This is a picture taken in Malaysia in one of the elementary or kindergarten schools. And one of the things that we also do is to promote raisins to school kids, young children, who are the consumers of the future, we think. So because they don't have, what's the word? Because they're school kids, our programs are less than 40 minutes long. I guess concentration, they lack the concentration. So what we do is we educate kids in a fun environment. So they would sing songs, learn how raisins are made, and the nutritional benefits of it by singing or playing games, etc., etc. So that's one of the other things that we do, so that they could go to their parents or to their friends, so they could talk about, hey, I learned about raisins today. Can you buy me some raisins? Can we go to the supermarket? So you know that's proved us pretty effective. So we do this in Malaysia and some other markets. This is a New Zealand ad. We consider New Zealand part of Asia, and probably New Zealanders would not think that, but New Zealand is a very interesting market. They only have 2 major retailers there. So if you're not in one of them, it's not even worth being in New Zealand. But these are some of the ads, or this is, yeah, a few ads, 2 ads that we did in New Zealand. And the consumption of raisins is pretty high in New Zealand because of the British influence. British people do eat a lot of dried vine fruit. Probably the largest consumer of dried vine fruit in the world. So in New Zealand, they do have Walmart type stores, which is the bigger box stores. And here you'll see our promotion. Philippines. This is an ad we put in the women's magazine. Philippines, it's my understanding that women do the majority of the buying of food. So we did this. We put most of our ads in magazines catered to women or housewives. This is Singapore, just one of our displays. We also advertise on buses, commonly seen in Fresno today. We also put ads on delivery trucks. So our importers may have delivery trucks or distributors, and we ask that they put our brand and also mention about the health benefits if they have space. We also focus on the trade as well. So this is a flyer that we made up for one of the trade shows in Taiwan. I don't read Chinese, but I believe it says 100% natural, no sugar added, and no fat, which are very important to a lot of people now. So who are today's major customers? So you probably recognize some of these store chains, very well known, and they're becoming more and more powerful, like the U.S. supermarkets. There's a lot of consolidation going on here in the U.S., but it's also true in Asia. They're getting very sophisticated too. Just as an example, 7-Eleven Japan they have delivery trucks coming in twice a week, or I'm sorry, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. And how do they do that? Everything is automated, so they know how much of each product was sold, so that they could replenish the products in several hours later, 7 hours later, 6 hours later. So they're becoming very, very sophisticated. They're also consumer oriented. We see that here in the States as well. They all operate, a lot of them operate multinationally. For instance, Carrefour, their headquarters in France, but they do have a major presence in China, and a minor presence in Indonesia, per se. In Malaysia, they have a big presence in Malaysia as well. So all of these countries or companies that's listed here, they all have a very big presence. So what do we look for in a distributor? So we kind of listed this for you, and this really is also a benchmark for us as well. So I'll just expand on a few points. Provide in-country focus on the brand. We don't want to be, okay, so if we work with a large distributor, we don't want to be one of 100 brands that they carry. We want to be one of the major brands. We want attention. We want them to focus on our brand, which is very important to us. Participate in developing annual plans. Present and plan for promotions. We need to know what kind of plans they have, so we could be ready. We need to be ready. And does it also, we try to send a message globally, so does it fit our global message? Make sales calls at headquarters. This is important too, because we consider our distributors as our sales arm, part of our sales team. We have a very small sales team at Sun-Maid, so we need our distributors to be our sales arm and present new products for listings. Some more, and there's actually more than this. For us, it's very important that it's the third item, update forecasts on a regular basis. That is very important for us, for our purchasing team, and for our operations team. Very important, because we need to know how much they're going to be buying or importing or shipping, so that our purchasing department can prepare to buy cases or cartons. And for our operations team, they need to know if they need the line time, additional line time to pack these.
Mr. Leiter?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm in a different industry, but dealing with the same type of issues
Yes.
as you do. How do you get them to give you a forecast that's accurate?
It's not as accurate as we wish. Sometimes we look at past history and also combined past history information with what they're telling us.
So you kind of go by the crystal ball that we all
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Good question.
Question?
Yes.
Could you talk about the currency coverage you had there and the ocean rate too?
Sure. So when we ship internationally, our importers will buy in dollars, but they have to sell it in yen. So they need to be covered. So currency fluctuates, right? So especially these days, the US dollar has been very strong. So what they need to be able to do is not rely on us, but rely on themselves. So we don't want the currency problem to be part of our problem. Our distributors need to be responsible for currency fluctuations.
With the dollar becoming so strong now, is there any reconsideration of that to maintain your sales or?
No, not our company. Most of our importers do, especially Japanese companies, they do have currency. They hold a lot of U.S. currency, so they seem to be covered. For other distributors, that may be a bigger problem, for sure. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Just to continue on that pursuit of the strong dollar, has that affected prices in your foreign markets and then the demand?
Absolutely, absolutely. But our importers cannot change the pricing based on currency so often. So once they set a price, they need to keep the price. This is especially true in retail, because every time there's currency fluctuations, they cannot change the pricing. So they need to make sure that the pricing that they give to retailers or wholesalers is kind of considers currency fluctuations.
Just to add on to that, do you ever consider basically offering different sales concessions to help mitigate the hardening of the currency?
No, we can't. We're not a bank, so yeah. Although we'd like to help, it's very difficult for us to see, because there's so many currencies out there too. We need our local partners to be mindful, and they have better knowledge too, because it's their local currency as well.
Strong U.S. dollar, is it negatively affecting your gold sales?
I would say so, yes. I would say so. Let me think about it. Because our shipments would, because for raisins, we compete with other producing countries. So if the U.S. dollar is very strong versus, we compete with Turkey. So if the Turkish lira is weak, then they definitely have an advantage over California. Yes?
What are your payment terms?
Payment terms, they vary by customer. Some customers, we don't have any problems having a long net terms. Some are net 10, some are LC, some are payment in advance. Harvey.
On number 4, the payment of the ocean freight.
Yes.
So you're saying that sometimes you pay for the ocean freight. Is that the?
Yes. So
Do
payment
you
of
make
ocean.
that up, or
This also depends on the customer too.
Okay.
So if the customers are responsible for ocean freight, then they would obviously be responsible for the freight charges. Yeah. So it all depends on the customer. But if we don't feel comfortable in paying for the freight, if it's going to, let's say, I don't know, North Korea or then we don't want to be responsible for it. So then they would be. So that's what it's saying. Any more questions? Yes.
Do you pay for or subsidize advertising activities?
Pay for subsidized,
Or subsidize
like
your
WUSADA?
distributors?
like WUSADA?
Sorry.
Oh, yes, I think so, yes.
your in-store?
In-store promotion,
your
yes.
So all of them, I mean, all your different promotions?
Yes, yes, to
subsidize?
some extent, yes. To some extent, yes. Again, it depends on the market and how much sales there is or how much potential there is as well. So these are the other points that we've listed.
So they do the trade, the repacking there, you're saying they make?
Yes, so U.S. sizes are sometimes too big for Asia. you know, I mean, if you compare the Asian, when I was living in Japan and came to the U.S. for the first time, I was surprised by the largeness of the units. And it's not just one unit. Sometimes it's sold in 4 or 5 units. So if for instance, we sell a pack that has 24 units, right, then for some markets, it might be better to break it down and make it a two pack or 3 pack. So that's what we're saying here. Okay, lastly, but not least, some potential issues. So I've listed it, but I'll go into detail. So some potential issues: traditional eating habits. Japan, as we said, it's really a baking market. So it's very hard for Japanese to consider raisins as a snack. So we've been trying to promote raisins as a healthy snack. It could be used in other ingredients, but it's hard to change people's mentality once they think that raisins are mainly in baked goods. Barriers to entry is certainly a potential issue. I put the halal symbol there. If you don't have halal, it's very difficult to ship your product to Malaysia or Indonesia. The next one is an emblem from the Indian customs. We like to ship to India, but it's very difficult because of high duty rates. They lowered their duty rates, but we have to, for instance, fumigate finished product. That's one example that I could think about. And then the second is labeling. They have different labeling laws compared to everybody in the world, like Hong Kong. So this is an interesting statistics, I think. This is per capita California raisin consumption. So what we did was we have the total shipments provided by the RAC, Raisin Administrative Committee. So we know total shipments, and we just divided by the number of people in the country. So, for example, if we have Chinese people currently eating 5 grams per person, if we could have 10 grams, if they could eat 10 grams, that would be very good for our industry and for Sunmade. Just to note, Singapore and Hong Kong are transshipment points. So from Singapore, it could go to other countries like Vietnam, Hong Kong, the same thing. The demographics of target audience. This is very important. So our raisins, we want to focus on young kids. Obviously, we don't want to ignore the elders, but we think that these are the consumers of the future. Other issues, retailers have limited shelf space. So if it's already crowded, it's very difficult for a newcomer to go in. So it would be very difficult for us to go into some of the markets that we're currently not in, for instance. Traditional trading relationships is another one. So in Japan especially, companies have long relationships that it's very hard to change. If the distribution system is like this, of course you're not going to be able to be so successful. This is actually, I did not take this picture, but when I went to Vietnam, I did see similar things like this. And sometimes they need to do this. In Indonesia, the traffic is very bad. And this could be the most effective way. Other issues, Volume and margin potential. Obviously, if you're going to ship to an island country, a small island country, you're not going to get the volume and margin potential that you're looking for. So you might want to consider that when entering new markets. So this is a picture from about 15 years ago. This is a picture taken in India, and I think it's somewhat true today. Somewhat true today. So here you'll see, are they processing, Harvey?
Yeah.
Pretty much? Yeah.
They're stemming them.
He's stemming them, yeah.
Stemming them, taking the gaps out,
Yeah,
because of the labor costs.
right. It's cheaper to do it that way. So,
They look to be at least Afghan or Iranian bases at best.
okay, okay. So this is what it looks like in India. What does it look like in China, a Japanese company in China? This is what they have to do. So I kind of listed what they have to do. They have to tuck their pants, right? Hand wash twice, elastic wristband, surgical mask, hairnet, etc., etc. And that's only the right side. It literally takes 10 minutes for an amateur to get dressed like this. So lastly, we just put together the degree of expenses to difficulty to develop, degree of expense and difficulty to develop a consumer branded internationally and domestically. And also we did the same for ingredients. So kind of shows you the level of difficulty to get into these markets. And also did the same for volume potential. And this is for raisins. It might be different for your products. Thank you for your attention, and please continue to eat Sun-Maid and California raisins. Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation. Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you.
So as a VP of Sun-Maid, I'm sure that you have a lot of challenges that keeps you awake at night. What would be one of those challenges that you would want to share today, and how are you overcoming that challenge as you develop this global business?
Very good question. No. I sleep well because I drink. I drink.
Probably health issues.
Maybe.
Just to help you, is it supply and demand globally? Is it talent acquisition?
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. And Harvey could probably answer this better, but for me at least, this time of the year is when we wrap up contracts. And this is for January through December, right? So contracts are a year long usually. And this is the time of the year we wrap up contracts. So that is a headache. As far as retail is concerned, that's on the ingredient side. On the retail side, not so much, except for labeling issues. That is because, okay, so we cannot have a pack for each country that we ship. So if a country comes in and says, hey, we need to do this labeling, these nutritionals have to be printed on the packs, then if we ship the same pack to other countries, then the other countries get affected. That is a headache. How to overcome it? I don't have the answer yet.
Good, thank you.
Yes?
Tomo, I'm also in the grape growing business, but instead of squeezing the lovely juice out like you do, we take the juice, ferment it, bottle it, and send it overseas as branded cases of wine.
Oh,
So thank you for
much
drinking.
better.
Thank you for your support.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
My question has to do with international marketing and the relevance of brand California or America. Are you using any of those as part of, are those significant when you're selling your Sun-made brand, say, in China, for example?
Right. I think we sell it as Sun-made California raisins. So the brand California is very important. And I think a lot of consumers and the trade have a lot of trust in the name California. So I think it's a very, very important tool for us to use, and I think for other people in the industry to use. So I agree completely.
Just follow up is that I saw like in the past we used Chinese, the brand into the branding, but now everything in China remains Sun-made. Is that a policy that you go internationally just to keep everything? With some people, some of the brands going to China, they might use domestic image and have a Chinese name.
Right, and it's our understanding that Chinese people prefer packs packed here. So that's what we're doing. We're shipping a raisin box packed here, shipped from here to there. And we don't want to give the Chinese consumers the perception that the raisins were packed in China if we have the pack in Chinese. So if we pack the raisins here with the Chinese graphics, I think our sales would go down as a result. So we keep the packaging in English for that market for that reason.
We hear that international trading issues or labeling issues, trading with other countries. But what are the challenges or issues they're having internally, whether it's labor issues or drought, or what is the most challenging area you can say right now for you?
Labor issues is not really a big problem for us, I think. That's because growers are moving into mechanical harvesting. The drought, fortunately, a lot of our growers have good access to water, which is the underground aquifers. So if they dig, they have the water. Most growers, I'm generalizing. What is the most? So those two areas is not too much of a concern.
But any challenges internally? When I say internally, like in U.S. Doing business for something.
I don't know of any, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Do you control pricing in the different countries that you sell into?
Do we control pricing? Well, the field price, there's what is called a field price that is set every year. So our commodity cost is based on that. So yes, if the commodity cost does go up, then we are certainly affected by that.
Field price?
Yes.
That's in terms of retail or?
That the field, that's the ingredient cost. It's the cost that we pay to buy the raw ingredients from the growers. Yes?
You mentioned the cost of transporting product to port. Do you have any other alternatives or addressing that cost?
No, that is actually the least expensive cost and efficient to truck it up to Oakland. And it's about $700, $800 to truck a 20-footer from here to Oakland. And just an example, an ocean freight, putting the same container onto a ship going from Oakland to Shanghai, for instance, it's about $400.
So do you think that is probably could be the challenge, the expense from taking it from here to the port and from exporting from the port to that country, and for those customers to afford American or California raisins to eat on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think it's still affordable. I mean, if it goes up, then obviously it becomes an issue. But that amount is still manageable because you're going to divide that by the number of pounds.
Tomo,
Yes.
as far as China, is that an emerging market now for California raisins, or are we still a facilitator for Japan?
I think it's an emerging market.
On its own now?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's still a facilitator as well.
Japan.
Yeah.
But predominantly used to be that way.
Yes, and it still is, but I think it's
There's some take off on the
gradually changing. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go with one more question. So I wonder if you have any advice for, Sunmade is large, as well-established brand, but smaller food companies that are coming up with new natural products that can be attractive in international markets. What kind of strategies would you recommend for the smaller businesses that are in the food business to export successfully?
I don't know if I want to say this. No, I'm just joking. I used to work for a smaller company prior to joining Sunmade, so I do understand the challenges that's involved. It's very difficult because Sunmade itself sells. I don't have to go to a buyer and say and explain my company because they already know us. I think the smaller companies, in that respect, has a challenge. They have a challenge to compete. I think they all have to differentiate themselves, whether it's new product development, doing something different, doing something creative that we may not be able to do. Those are some of the things that there's more flexibility with smaller companies, I think, and I think that's the advantage actually for smaller companies. That if something doesn't work well, they could change over pretty much immediately.
So thank you, Tomo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I know there were a few more other questions. I apologize for having to put you off, but for sake of time, I want to make sure we stay on schedule. Tomo, are you going to stay around for lunch or? Oh, okay. So
around for a few more minutes.
he'll be here a few more minutes. So if you do have a question that we didn't get to take, please take advantage of the time that Tomo is sticking around. So thank you, Tomo, for providing those insights and economic history of Sunmade growers and how you're branding your products over the Pacific Rim. I think you brought to us a great example of iconic California egg cooperative coupling a renowned brand with long-term international relationships and selling quality California grown products internationally. So again, we thank you for bringing your insights and your knowledge to everybody this morning. Switching gears, we mentioned earlier about the need for actionable business intelligence. This includes identifying new pockets of growth and the best way to sell into those markets. At the federal level, the administration is engaged in opening and expanding markets around the Pacific Rim. Joining us this morning is Dr. Pagi. Dr. Pagi is the director of the Center for Agricultural Business and adjunct professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics here at Fresno State. Dr. Pagi coordinates a variety of research activities and outreach programs dealing with a broad range ag policy, international trade, and agricultural market analysis. Dr. Pagi is a longtime associate of our next speaker, and he will provide a few introductory remarks welcoming Ambassador Darcy Vetter, the Chief Ag Negotiator in the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, Executive Office of the President. Dr. Pagi?
This is interesting. Because I'm actually not supposed to be on until this afternoon.
I think they have you introducing the ambassador.
A little bit.
I think she's going to be up on the screen in a few minutes.
I can do that.
Okay.
Good.
Welcome to Fresno State. If you come in the afternoon, I'll be a lot more lucid. I have done a lot of work on the preparation of the TPP, so I'm going to talk about some of those things this afternoon. I think we're going to have Ambassador Vedder be a Skype sort of thing. I love technology when it works.
Hi guys, we're here.
So we're here. You're on.
So I don't have an invitation or an introduction laid out because I didn't know I was supposed to do this. I thought I was on this afternoon, but I do know Ambassador Vedder from a former life when she worked in the USDA, working on NAFTA when I was working for the American Farm Bureau Federation. So we kind of go way back. I know the family, as it were, and I'll be honest with you. She's worked in the Doha round. She worked during the Uruguay round, and I know a lot of people in Washington D.C. in the trade arena, and I really can't think of anybody I'd rather have my back in these sorts of discussions and these sorts of things than somebody like Ambassador Vedder. She's well versed, well trained, knows Congress from her work with Bacchus back in the day. She knows the way the world works in the private sector as well. And I think we're well served, and I look forward to hearing the remarks about how the administration views the TPP going forward now that we've got the easy thing done. We've got to get it through Congress, which I think is going to be the more difficult of the tasks. So I'll turn it over to Ambassador Vedder, and really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us.
Well, first, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. It is indeed a privilege for me to be able to work on this wide variety of ag issues and work on behalf of U.S. agriculture, and particularly to be able to sit in this chair as Chief Agriculture Negotiator when we are working to, well, we have concluded, but are now working, of course, to have ratify an amazing agreement like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this is a first for me. I've never given the TPP overview via Skype. So I will count on some of you in the audience there, if you're having trouble hearing or any problems, to kind of give me a hand signal I can see. And I'll try and adjust accordingly there. Thanks to all of you for being incredibly flexible so that I could join you, although not physically in the same room today. TPP is really an unprecedented opportunity for the U.S. economy and for agriculture in particular. You can just look at the group of countries involved and see that it provides both immediate and future opportunities with the economies at the table, and simply its scale. 40% of global GDP is represented in TPP. That includes top markets for California already, like Mexico, Canada, and Japan, and a number of developed countries like Canada and Japan, New Zealand, Australia, that are already consumers of high-value products from the U.S. and have high incomes to be able to buy our products. But you also have at the table Malaysia and Vietnam, Brunei, key developing economies whose populations are rapidly increasing, and whose members whose citizens are rapidly joining the middle class. And that increased income changes their buying decisions. They are able to purchase. In the agriculture arena, we focus on the fact that when you join the middle class, you change your diet. You want more protein, you want fresher product, more convenient processed products to accommodate a different lifestyle. And those are all things that California and that the U.S. in general is particularly good at producing. And of course, geographically located where you are, in addition to the wide variety of products produced in California, means that you are particularly well poised to reap the benefits of TPP. Already, California exported just last year $173 billion worth of goods. 41% of that went to our TPP partners. But you could be doing better. You could be paying less or reaping more of the profits for yourself and having the consumers in TPP rather pay less for those goods because their tariffs are reduced or eliminated. And you could face less red tape in all of those markets, better, more clearer regulation, better transparency. TPP is the highest standard agreement that we have ever negotiated. And with so much of the global economy at the table, those standards, those high standards are now, or will now, once we pass TPP, be utilized by a huge swath of our trading partners. There are unprecedented protections for labor and the environment, and fully enforceable for dispute settlement. These are critical to leveling the playing field. All of you face environment and labor regulations that you have to comply with. Those standards aren't always as high in other countries. And frankly, we as a global community also want to be promoting better standards for labor and better environmental protections. TPP in particular looks at particular environmental issues that are relevant to that region. Things like trying to stop unregulated fishing, for example, illegal wildlife trafficking, illegal sale of illegally harvested timber. Those are all things that in the Asia Pacific region are particularly problematic. And if our trade and environment officials can be working together to crack down on them, we solve a problem that's common to us all, and frankly a problem that often undercuts legitimate goods and their sales in the region. This agreement has the first ever and new disciplines on state-owned enterprises. Many of you compete with companies that are partially state-owned in that region of the world, who have subsidized positions in their economies, who don't have to meet all of the different standards and regulations that your businesses face. That will go away. There are disciplines on the government subsidies that can be provided. They ask that state-owned enterprises operate on the same market terms that you need to operate on when selling goods and services in TPP economies. And TPP establishes very strong disciplines on intellectual property rights. That's something we value very highly here in the US, but many of you who participate already in the global economy know that it's not always easy to protect your trademarks, your copyrights. We want to encourage innovation throughout the region and have established very strong disciplines on IPR to do so. And TPP maintains a strong commitment to opening the digital economy as well. Many small and medium enterprises enter the global economy for the first time by selling their goods online. We need to make sure they have access to customers, are able to use the content they want to produce. And TPP throughout all of its chapters, whether that's market access, whether that's the intellectual property provisions, provisions on investment, and other aspects of trade, maintains a strong commitment to transparency and to overall transparent and streamlined processes. There's a specific chapter on small and medium enterprises, aiming to allow them to participate more easily in the global economy, to have a place they can go to tell them what's required, how to comply with standards, and again, that commitment to transparency so that everyone can participate without having special access to figure out what those procedures might be. And of course, I'm particularly fond of the benefits of TPP to U.S. agriculture. I know you have a panel coming up after I sign up today to talk about that particular sector of the economy, and so I want to elaborate a little bit on TPP and U.S. ag as well. Again, I think TPP is uniquely interesting for U.S. agriculture because of its combination of high-value markets where we can sell high-value products to those more economically advantaged consumers, and a set of growing economies that currently are already good markets for us, Vietnam and Malaysia, for products like commodities, but whose rapidly growing middle class will make them important customers for us, not just in those commodities, but also in higher value products, meat, dairy, poultry, processed foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, a key export for California. Again, the consumers in those countries are going to be seeking higher quality, more varied diets, and we are particularly well poised to provide them. And I think it's important to note that the value of TPP, an agreement that addresses rules in a comprehensive way, that aims for strong market access provisions. Again, every single product in TPP is liberalized in some way. There are no exceptions. Every product is addressed and liberalized. The vast majority of tariffs under TPP are eliminated. Where they will not be eliminated, New tariff rate quotas are established, or those tariffs are very significantly reduced. So again, the full scope of goods see new market access, and the rules are the highest standard they have been. And that meant that countries like Canada and Japan, who typically had not put their sensitive agricultural sectors on the table, were willing to do so to be part of TPP. For Canada, that means new access for the United States to dairy, poultry, and eggs, something we were not able to achieve in the US-Canada Free Trade Agreement or in NAFTA. And for Japan, that means that what they call their sacred sectors now have openings for US products as well. That's beef, that's pork, it's dairy, wheat, rice, and sugar, all will see new access to Japan. And the rules side of the negotiations are particularly important for agriculture as well. And again, I think key for California and for many of your top exports. And that's because we have expanded and improved upon the rules for sanitary and phytosanitary measures that countries adopt, as well as adopted first-time ever rules on the protection of geographical indications in the TPP. And I'll start with SPS. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures, those plant health measures you face, the animal health restrictions, food safety measures that you see and have to meet in other countries, are, one, critically important. We have very high SPS standards here in the United States to protect agriculture in California and across the country. But those measures need to be legitimate and based on science. It can be tempting sometimes as tariffs go down or as new competitors enter the market to use SPS barriers in place of tariff protections to reduce competition. TPP puts in place a higher standard for countries to demonstrate that their SPS rules and measures are based on sound science. And not just that they can scientifically show that there's a risk to animal or human or plant health, but that the measures they're putting in place to address that risk speak to that risk and are not more trade restrictive than they need to be. There are also new rules on transparency of SPS provisions. Some of you may have faced a situation where your shipment was ready to go or even on the water and an SPS provision was adopted without prior notice or comment, was put into place without much warning, or your shipment arrived at the port and you were suddenly subject to testing procedures you didn't know about. These SPS provisions make sure that countries, first of all, allow for notice and comment and rulemaking. If they propose to put in place an SPS measure, countries can comment and say, I can mitigate this risk. I can make sure it's pest-free using a different method that I'd like you to consider and adopt a new regulation rather than the procedures you originally outlined. We do that with other countries, but it's not a luxury we always enjoy when trying to participate in other countries' rulemaking. And there's a huge commitment to transparency, but also to dispute settlement in SPS. In our past free trade agreements, SPS rules were not subject to dispute settlement. If we had a complaint about SPS procedures, we would have to take that dispute at the WTO in Geneva. But now that we've adopted these additional measures on risk analysis and transparency and problem solving, we wanted to make sure that we could also enforce those through the TPP. And so we are able to go to dispute settlement on those issues as well, which again is unprecedented in our FTAs. And last, quickly, I'll comment on geographic indications, which are particularly important for agriculture, our dairy and meat industries. Some of you may be aware of Europe's efforts, both within Europe, but also in third countries, to protect the sale of their products through the protection of geographical indicators. And some of those are perfectly legitimate, and they really do convey a sense of place and quality that might come from producing a product in a certain place. Parmigiano Reggiano, for example, we think of as a cheese that comes from a certain region of Italy. But what Europe is asking our trading partners to do is to protect and not allow the sale from other countries of the generic parts of those names. So to overly enforce or to too broadly protect those geographic indications, Parmesan, Feta, Asiago, cheeses that are proudly made here in the United States and have been for generations would not be able to be sold in other countries if geographic indications were protected as Europe would like them to be. And so the Trans-Pacific Partnership contains specific language that says when countries move to protect geographic indications, there's an opportunity to comment on that, to object if in fact the breadth of protection would stop the sale of products that are already for sale in that market, that have been registered under similar names, and to make sure they get that protection right. This is particularly important in markets like Vietnam and Malaysia, which didn't used to be very big consumers of dairy, not a big part of the diet in that part of the world, but increasingly are becoming big consumers. The cheese market in Vietnam, for example, has grown 17% per year for the past 8 years, and that trend does not look to be slowing. We could be providing those cheeses, but we have to make sure we can get them in their grocery stores. But when we think about TPP, there are those specific market access benefits. There are the benefits of the rules, but the world also isn't standing still. So we have to not just think about those benefits today and think to ourselves, there's a world today without TPP and the world with TPP. But rather, if we look forward 5 years from now, what will the world be like if we don't pass TPP? And the fact is, as hard as we've been working to conclude this negotiation, the countries of the Asia Pacific have all been concluding other negotiations with each other. There are literally dozens upon dozens of negotiations that have gone on, agreements that have been completed, and others that are being negotiated now in the region. So if we fail to complete TPP, not only will we not have preferential access, not only will we not create a certain rules-based way of doing business in the region, but others will take that place. They will keep us out of that preferential access. They will have better trade terms with each other for tariffs. But they'll also set standards for labor, for the environment, for IP protection, for food safety that might not comport with the standards that we think are important, both for U.S. values, but also as a way of doing business in the region. TPP is intended to be a platform. We have 12 countries at the table now, but the vision had always been that a high standard agreement like TPP would attract others later. And within the first week of announcing that negotiations were concluded, 8 different countries got in touch with Ambassador Froman to say, when can it be our turn? Some of those countries have done so very publicly. The Philippines, Indonesia, whose president was here, said we need to be part of TPP a few weeks ago. Taiwan has consistently expressed an interest. Korea would be willing to take on higher standard rules to join, even though they already have an FTA with us. They see the regional benefits of TPP. So there's really a potential here for us to export not only new products, but to export our way of doing business throughout the entire Asia-Pacific region. But if we don't, others are already working to fill that void. China is already negotiating with a number of countries in the region what they call the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. But again, its standards are not as high. They won't be touching every single product and liberalizing it in that way. They do not have improved SPS standards as part of their models. No labor and environmental protection. No higher standards for intellectual property, no disciplines on state-owned enterprises, and the loss of that overall focus on the importance of transparent governance. So it's not just a binary choice between do we have access today, what access do we have today and what do we have tomorrow, but rather whether we are joining and leading and exporting both our way of doing business, but also that we are not falling behind as others choose to integrate throughout the region. So again, we have a strategic and a critical leadership choice to make. Do we want to be setting those standards, or do we want others to do it for us? So for all those reasons I've just outlined, I hope that you'll agree with me that the Trans-Pacific Partnership is really an incredible opportunity and one that we can't afford to pass up. And the process going forward, I think you heard in the introduction that concluding the negotiations was hard. I can tell you war stories from experience, but getting the market access we did was difficult in and of itself. But now what we have to do is to get our political system to recognize the value of this agreement, both economically, politically, and strategically. And your voice is critical in making that happen. Your ability to demonstrate what the benefits mean for you. The text of the agreement is now fully public. You can see what will happen to tariffs on your products. You can read the rules and disciplines that have been agreed by these countries and think about what that means for you. And then demonstrate it. I urge all of you to actively communicate the benefits that you see of this agreement. Do it in your own way. Draft an op-ed. Be active online. Post things to social media. Take this conversation to your dinner table, to other parts of the community, to your book group, but most importantly, reach out to your member of Congress and talk about what this means for your bottom line and the way that you operate your businesses. Again, there's a lot at stake here. Opponents of free trade in general have been extremely vocal in their opposition to TPP, but we can't let them define the narrative of what this agreement will mean for our economy, for your community, or for our country as a whole. So again, I urge you to make this personal. Think about what the benefits will mean for you and then illustrate that to those around you. I hope I get the opportunity and I look forward to working with each of you on advancing TPP in 2016, and I wish you well for the rest of your conference here today. Thank you so much.
We've got a few folks that want to ask you a question, so they're going to come up so you can see them.
Here, hi.
Oh, there you go.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I guess the question is, can you expand a little bit into the relationship of China and the TPP? Is it part of the TPP? Will it be part, or how complicated is it for China to be part of this?
Well, that is really sort of the million-dollar question, isn't it? China is not currently one of the 12 members of TPP, and China would likely have a great deal of work to do in terms of its own regulations and standards to be able to meet the terms of the TPP. Again, the high standards for things like intellectual property protection, state-owned enterprise disciplines. But the disciplines that we adopted together, or that we drafted together as the 12 members of TPP, were done so very much with China in mind. And so we want this agreement, again, as I noted, to be a platform. We want other countries to join it. So we looked at what were the kinds of standards we'd like to see throughout the Asia Pacific. And, I think when we started the TPP endeavor, China looked at this agreement a little bit skeptically. Were they left out on purpose? Was it an effort to neutralize them or to not include them? But I think now they're showing a lot more openness and curiosity about what the agreement is. And, at a time when they were ready to meet those standards, I think that's certainly something we would want to look at. Again, we want this to be the standard bearer for the region. And of course, China is a key economy in that region. And, we would hope that they would look very hard at the TPP.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, I guess that's it. And go over here to see you. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I'm waiting for a little bit of direction from the team, but I do want to thank the Ambassador Vetter and Dr. Pagi for providing our participants with the inside view into how the administration is working to foster international trade and an agreement that serves the national interest while also improving the quality of life, the earnings, and the per capita wealth of everyday working Californians. I know that on my side, we have been active in supporting TPP and meeting with members of Congress and making sure they understand what it means to our business owners and those that are doing business internationally. So again, I think the ambassador kind of laid it out. Make it part of your discussions, let your members know how important it is, et cetera, so that we can move forward with that treaty, with that agreement. I do want to thank the U.S. Department of Commerce and their Market Development Cooperator Program support for this event, and the Cal Asian Chamber's International Export Promotion Program. To learn more about what we're doing on behalf of international trade, contracting and procurement opportunities, as well as our upcoming 2016 Export International Trade Promotion Activities and Services, you can visit our website at www.calasiancc.org or talk with any of the staff members here today, and they'll be glad to assist you in any way.
So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and call up our next panel, the California Export Opportunity and Challenges panel. Could we have Janie Lagaluso and Nate? I'm gonna get your name wrong, so I apologize. Are you here, Nate? Okay, and Ron Brown. And I am going to moderate. We're gonna have a little bit of a free flow for the next 20 minutes, sort of talk about what are those opportunities and what are those challenges? And we know one of the biggest challenges is currently water. It's just us? Okay, we'll just have a little conversation then. How's that? Hey everybody, we're gonna have a conversation. I want your questions as well, so let's go ahead and do that. Hey Ron, how's it going?
I'm good.
Excellent.
So you're coming down front?
Most definitely. Do you want to sit in the middle or the side or what?
I'm gonna sit next to this pretty lady.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you very much. What did you think of Ambassador Vetter? Interesting? Hey, what do you think of the technology? Yeah, and let's give a hand to Denny and Emil here. That's right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Sam Driggers, and I'm the Director of Global Initiatives at the Cal Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. And I want to take time and thank our panelists today. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about some of the challenges and opportunities that are out there. And it's going to be very informal, but first off, I'd like to say thank you to Janie Lagaluso. She is President and CEO of Frank A. Lagaluso Farms here in the South San Joaquin Valley. And Ron Brown, as he is the Maritime Marketing and Commodities Rep for the Port of Oakland. And I know him as the guy that gets things done. So I want to have a big welcome and a round of applause for both of them. Would you mind just taking a few minutes and talk about yourself and your firm and where you come from? And then Ron, talk a little bit about the Port of Oakland and the linkages here in the South San Joaquin Valley and the Central Valley, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Okay?
Sounds
Jimmy?
good.
My family's on its 4th generation. We're a family farm. We raise table grapes, apricots, and cherries on the west side in Westland's Water District, miraculously with no water. And I'm daughter number 1. I'm the 3rd generation. My grandfather came over from Italy at the turn of the century. We used to be pretty large. We used to farm about 10,000 acres. We got smart and got rid of a lot of it, and we're down to 2,000 acres with higher value crops, and we're probably more profitable doing this than we were years ago. We've been exporting for over 30 years. We've had the same customers in Taiwan for those 30 years. In fact, we are on our 2nd generation of buyers. The daughter of our main buyer now comes over and visits. So we've been doing this a very long time. We raise the seeded red globe grape, which most of you probably don't like grapes with seeds. So those grapes go over to the Pacific Rim, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. It's been interesting to watch over the 30 years the change in the consumer in the Pacific Rim. Now you're seeing the next generation come in. You're seeing a change from wet markets to supermarkets. You're seeing a change from the seeded grapes to seedless grapes. And so we've been very fortunate to work with the same people over these years and be able to continue a relationship. And when I say relationship, it is a long relationship. They come over and visit us, we go over and visit them. They know our labels. We've had the same labels for the last 30 years. We protect our labels. So when we say it's a #1 label, it is our best quality fruit. If we say it's a #2 label, it's a step down. There are years that we don't have the #1 label. Weather, pests, whatever, intervene. And our customers know that. So they know when they're buying the #1 label, this is what they're getting. When they're buying the #2 or the #3, this is what they're getting. And depending on we deal with wholesalers and direct importers. So depending on the customers, they may buy all 3 labels. They may only buy the #1. But with our reputation over the last 30 years and the improvement in technology and the containers and the temperature recorders and those kinds of things, when our product arrives, we have very little problem. Years ago, we'd have to be ready to, if there was a problem, jump on a plane and be in Taiwan the next morning to look at it. Now with technology, we don't have those issues with the containers anymore. And there's also the internet and photographs. So we don't have to do all of that traveling like we used to. Our challenge, I'm here as a grower. We use a company that sells our fruit. It's run by my son. It's separate from our business. But our problem really right now in California is, I think there's other farmers in the room, it's water, it's the changing climate, it's regulations. We farm where there's no water. We do not have an aquifer where we farm. We depend totally on surface water. And right now, this last couple of years, we've had no surface water. So we have another ranch where we can pump groundwater, pump it into the system and exchange it for surface water. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. It's a sustainable regulated program. I think we've heard of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that's been enacted in California. So we're going to have to prove sustainability over the next 20 to 30 years, or we're not going to be able to pump groundwater. We're very highly going to be limited to the amount of groundwater we can pump. And you're going to see a change in the amount of acres that are farmed. Right now, we're only farming half of our acreage because we don't have the water. So I think you're going to see a change in amounts, types of commodities you're seeing in California going to more nuts because there's no labor involved, and it's a higher dollar crop. And those of us that are in the fresh fruit industry, we're probably going to struggle. And hopefully we have aligned ourselves and situated ourselves so we can survive. So I think you're going to see big changes in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, wow. There's a few bullet points here I'd like to explore later, but I think from the producer, processor, to the relationship management of how product gets to the places from the beginning to the end, I think Ron can speak to that. And then there's some themes that I think are going to come out of this, so we can touch on those in a little bit. But Ron?
Okay, excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon yet. Good morning, everyone. If I can, I want to cheat just a wee bit because there was a question that was asked earlier, and Tomo, my friend, did a good job of partially answering the question. I'm going to put it that way. And I want to give you not the answer, but a answer. I think the question was, what about small companies in terms of how they get their products to markets in various parts of the world? And I want to kind of start with that because that might lead to more questions. And I actually enjoy seeing new companies come to market, smaller businesses come to market, trying to find new ways, creative ways to get their product recognized, understanding the myriad of regulations and governments and all the other issues that are associated with sort of going from a small company, relatively unknown, to becoming a successful company. And as many of you can detect, I'm getting a little long of tooth and short of hair, so I've been around a while, so I've had a chance to really see some some businesses grow. I've been proud to see some of those that I've assisted to become successful in various markets throughout the world. So I wanted to try to address that question first, and I'm going to start out this way. Probably the most effective thing you can do as a small business trying to export. You have a number of advantages here in California. Now, there are some challenges, I won't deny that, but you have a number of advantages here in California. But the most effective thing you can do, from what I've seen small companies succeed at, was develop strategic relationships. And I say strategic with emphasis, because you have the advantage of a number of agencies, many of which are sponsors of this event, that are charged with your success. I mean, they get monitored, they get their performance reviews, they get their budgets based on how effectively they help you succeed. So you have an arsenal of people that are really standing by and fully accessible to you to help you grow. Now, strategic relationships, and I want to be a little bit more particular on that, because here, even in Fresno, you have a couple of organizations that I think can be very effective. It depends on what your product is, first of all. I know locally you have, for those of you that do dried fruits and nuts, or packaging, or distributing, or marketing, or whatever your role is in that supply chain, you have the Specialty Crop Trade Council, which is an industry association. And again, I'm not playing any one of these associations off the other. They're all very good, very effective at assisting you. But they've already done the hard lifting or the heavy lifting in terms of what you need to do to get your product to market. They've already have some of the relationships that you want to participate with. And by participating in that organization, it gives you access. And they can tell you where the good and the bad is. In other words, what countries are good to do business with or not to do business with. In some cases, what individuals to do business with or not to do business with. So you have them here locally. And I don't know if you guys have used the Specialty Crop Trade Council, but that's one of the organizations. In terms of food quality, you have another one very close by, the Dried Fruits and Nuts organization, which works on food quality. And I've had an opportunity of going to a number of their events, and to be honest with you, it scares the hell out of me to sit and listen to all the different things that could affect food quality. I mean, for most of us, we go into the supermarket and we buy the brands that we know, or we experiment from time to time. But just the sheer fact of food quality and monitoring and temperature control and age of the product and things like that, the Dried Fruits and Nuts Association can work with you on that, because they have the scientists and all the professionals that deal with you in terms of providing that information. So not to be too long-winded, strategic relationships are important, and I would first start with industry associations related to the product that you are marketing or you're trying to market, because that's a very inexpensive phone call, it's a very inexpensive relationship. And as a small business, a startup business, you want to spend your money wisely. Of course, there's a myriad of consultants out here, and there may be some in the room, so I don't want to step on any consultants that might be here. But there are a number of industry associations that can give you a lot of very, very good information very inexpensively. And of course, you have the various sponsors, that many of which are governmental or quasi-governmental relationships that will help you, because again, that's their charge. That's where they get their budget from to help U.S. small businesses export to various countries around the world. Now, what I do, and I'll give you the very short version of that. At the Port of Oakland, which is your port, and I've given this presentation several times, and sometimes I get way off track, but the reality is all the ports in California belong to the residents of the state of California. So no matter what any of them tell you, you are the owners, their owners. You don't have stock in them, but all the properties that the ports operate on in the state of California is property of the residents of the state of California. That's under an agreement that these ports have with the various jurisdictions. You have a question?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that sounds to me kind of like we had the tail wagging the dog with respect to last summer, going into the fall when we had the longshoreman strike. They held our industries whereby what I'm saying is those of us who produce perishable commodities, we would load containers, have cutoff times at the port to load, and thereby find out it didn't load for 7 to 10 days, or oftentimes sat there for 2 weeks and they were returned, and we had a loss of product. You know, so I just had to point that out.
I'm very aware of that, and I will tell you, there's a long, long list of people ahead of you that have shared that with me. And it was a very difficult period, and I don't want to belabor it, but it was a very difficult period that we all went through. And part of that is as it relates to the maritime industry. So it isn't specifically the port, because a port is essentially a port authority. In other words, we operate under a Tideland Trust Agreement as stewards on your behalf. Now, there are a number of other entities that participate at a port, and you identified a couple of them. One of them is Longshoremen, and this is the International Longshore and Warehouse Workers Union, acronym ILWU. They're the guys that load and unload the vessels, and they operate under their own agreement. They are essentially independent contractors. So you have a number of stakeholders that, for the average person, they see a port and they think it's just one entity. It's multiple entities. It's the longshoremen who are the dock workers. They load and unload the vessels. You also have truckers. I don't know if you have truckers in the room, but you know, the trucking industry, these are the people that get it from point A to point B. You have the steamship lines, which are the ocean carriers that basically are the big ships that come into port and they're traversing the world, you know, whether it's the Trans-Pacific or the Asia-Europe trade or the inter-Asia trade. They're the large carriers that move the cargo all around the world. So they all have interests in this process of moving cargo. So when you're looking at a problem, you know, like you identified, there are multiple parties, and again, this is not to point fingers. There are multiple parties that you really have to consider and see where that bottleneck may be. In that particular case, the ILWU was negotiating their contract, and it wasn't going real well, and they basically flexed their muscle. By slowing down the movement of cargo, it really showed how they can impact the U.S. economy. Now, just very quickly, in case any of you are ever on the show Jeopardy, I want to give you some answers, or questions, I guess, because they give you the answer.
Excuse me, there's 8 people who watch Jeopardy out there. We just saw your smiles, okay? I just wanted you to know that. Go ahead.
All right. In California, you have 3 large container ports. And most importantly, you have the 2 largest container ports in the United States are in California. And those are the ports of Long Beach and the port of Los Angeles. In terms of all the major ports throughout the U.S., they're the largest 2. Oakland is actually the 5th busiest container port in the United States. Along the U.S. West Coast, you have 5 large container ports. Again, you have the 2 in Southern California, LA, Long Beach, and then you have 2 in the Pacific Northwest, the ports of Seattle and Tacoma. And Oakland, geographically and by market share, we're actually in the middle between those. But among those 5 large container ports, about 70% of all cargo movement in and out of the United States move through those ports. So they're very significant in terms of international cargo movement and international trade. Now, what you probably want to hear me say is, how can we help you? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, as a port authority, and I will share with you what we do and a little bit what some of the others do, we're constantly engaged with ports all around the world. We're constantly engaged with carriers that haul cargo all around the world. So it gives us sort of a spot in the cargo movement of seeing where the strengths and weaknesses are, where the successes and failures are. And what we try to do, and I didn't come with a lot of material because most of you have access to the internet, we try to keep a lot of that information on our website. But in terms of being able to move your product or identify which markets are good markets for you to move your product, we host a lot of that information on our website. Whether it's, you know, dried fruits and nuts, and I think what was mentioned was raisins earlier. I think I heard someone mention wines that are exported to various parts of the world. We identify the markets where there are the highest growth trends. We identify the third-party logistics firms that can help you move your product into those markets. what a lot of shippers, particularly the smaller ones that don't have large staffs, that can actually do the logistics planning and paying the various fees that have to be paid, they work through a third-party logistics firm, 3PL, as the acronym goes. It could be someone like FedEx. They would be one of the larger ones, not to just pick them out, but UPS, and there's several others, DHL. A lot of them do international cargo movements. They can actually work with you to move your cargo. And they can do it as a bundle rate. And that's probably what you want to do, is look at, and again, if there are smaller 3PLs in the room, please, I do not want to disrespect anyone, just using this as an example. What they can do for you is do what's called a bundle service. In other words, point to point. So you say my product is being packaged in Fresno, I've got a customer in Shanghai. I have no idea how to get it there. You can work through a 3PL, they'll work with the landside transportation, picking it up at your location by truck. Hopefully it's coming through the Port of Oakland. I would suggest that you do. And then they can also work with you on a variety of the documentation that's necessary to get your product into that foreign market. And in some cases, there are a number of fees that have to be paid in advance. There's a lot of documentation that has to be provided. Things like phytosanitation and a lot of the product quality issues. There are labeling issues, and for those of you that are small, I will tell you that is a nightmare in terms of different markets and what the labeling requirements might be in certain markets around the world. You want somebody that knows how to do that. They're not going to be terribly inexpensive, but you want somebody that really knows how to do it, because if you do it wrong, there have been many, many cases where products have gotten to the foreign port and it's not accepted because, phrase or number or logo is not correct, and that product is returned. And boy, that's very expensive. So you want somebody that really knows the markets that you're trying to go into. Now, I don't want to dominate the conversation because I can talk on it forever, but the most important thing that I said to you this morning is strategic relationships. Identify the right strategic relationships for your product, for the market that you're trying to penetrate, and work with them. I think that will get you much further faster.
Thank you. You're both on the same page, strategic relationships. Does everybody, let's show of hands, how many people believe that's fundamental to business? I see, pretty much 3/4 of the room. Those relationships are what, the glue that binds that commercial exchange. There were several other points that came up. Brand, demographic changes, and there was an interest in sustainability. And it seems to me there's a lot going on in California with regards to water, whether it's, as State Senator Vidak said earlier, water conveyance, water storage, getting water to the crops. And those changes in that climate, that whole sustainability model, are forcing market forces to change as well. And it seems, let me ask the audience, have you seen a change in your business model within the past 5 years? If so, raise your hand. How about in 10? Yeah? You've seen some changes. So is that opening opportunities for your clients, your farm, or is it closing opportunities, or is it a mix of both? And can you give us an example? And then I've got a follow-up question on that one. So
I'll let you start with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think in California, what you've seen is, and we've started to do it also, just a shift in what crops are being grown. I think the Thompson seedless grape has really declined. Sorry about the Raging people here, but a lot of us have pulled out Thompson seedless that we used to use for fresh, for the fresh market, and you're seeing almonds go in. And a lot of reasons. Number one, probably number one thing is labor. Anything that you can reduce your hand labor in the state of California, where we just cannot We haven't been able to get a legal guest worker program passed. I've been working in DC since 1992 to try to get a guest worker program passed where people can come here legally and safely to work and go home. That's been a failure, both in Republican administrations and in Democratic administrations. We've never been able to get it through. Our borders are stricter, and you can't get, people are not going back and forth, they're staying here. I see a farmer over here shaking his head. Our workforce is getting older. We can't pack the way we used to, so farmers are adapting. My family has started over 3 times since the 60s. We've started over 3 times. We've had failures, and you just adapt and you move on. And so you're seeing almonds, walnuts, and California has done an excellent job in grabbing the export market around the world for almonds, and so the prices have stayed high. When I grew up, almonds were 17 cents a pound.
Okay, how much profit could you guys make?
We sold in-shell nonpareils this year for almost $5. So $5. So the market's probably around $3.50, $4 right now, probably settled in, averaging around $4 if you're lucky, $3.50 to $4. So if you're having to pay a lot of money for water in the state of California, the crop you need to grow is something that pays for that water and still gives you a profit. And so almonds fits the bill. So you've seen a change in that. And even we've planted 120 acres of almonds. We're going to be planting 160 acres of pistachios. We pulled out 80 acres of red globes. We pulled them out. This is last year we made probably the sales was 1.4 million on those 80 acres. We pulled them out. And we didn't have water, and we need to find a different crop to fit the bill.
I think Julie Escobar.
Yeah, so I have a specific question for you. So as you're pulling out of the red globes, do you see other growers doing the same, specifically with what's happening with Peru, having such a huge competition out there? Is that a trend for the growers?
Well, Peru is off season from us, so the southern hemisphere produces this time of year. Starting now, we're through, so there's room for all hemispheres to sell their products. But I know people are putting in table grapes. They're putting in newer varieties of table grapes. There's people that have gotten out of citrus and gone heavy into the new varieties of table grapes. It takes 4 to 7 years to get a full crop. So in California, we've always been changing our products and everything, but I think you're seeing them really look at where the market is. And for table grapes, the higher dollars are export, East Coast buyers, not so much here in California. So you have to look. Right now, my water costs are going up 3 times from this year to next year because I'm going to have to actually go out on the open market and buy water.
Was there a question?
Yeah, I think there was a
question.
So we hear water is one issue for farming, but do you, and that's keeping you probably as all the farmers are, and other businesses that are incorporated and relationships, strategic relationships. Any regulations that's keeping you up?
Oh gosh. I had a career in healthcare, managed hospitals, and I probably have more regulations now than I did in the hospital arena. We have to be Global Gap certified in order to sell to the export market. All of our customers require that. So require some sort of food safety certification. We chose Global Gap, that's what we're doing now. Labor is highly regulated here, and rightly so. We have to make sure we have a safe environment for people to work in. They're out in heat. And so Cal OSHA has really strengthened the high heat regulations. So we have to make sure we do that. Pesticides. We have very few pesticides that we can use anymore. And we have to meet the MRL expectations of the countries that we export to. So there's very few chemicals we can use. Sometimes we have a pest problem, and we're looking through the book to see which one's going to meet the maximum residue level that we need for, say, Taiwan or wherever we're exporting to. And so regulations are, we're in California, so even if it's a federal regulation, California's going to have a stricter version.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to add, in California we have a number of commodities that are very water intensive. And not only water intensive, but they're also very broadly recognized throughout the world. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but there's a lot of rice that's grown here in California. And it's actually a very high quality, preferred rice, even in various countries in Asia. So the issue with the drought and water really affects that industry, the rice industry. The other one is cotton. You know, many of you probably, I don't know if there are any cotton growers in the room, but cotton, the Pima cotton, the California Pima cotton, is considered one of the best cottons in the world. So when you look at many of your very high quality garments that are manufactured, whether it's in Europe or in Asia, they're actually importing from their side, they're importing Pima cotton from California because of the quality of that cotton. So that's been impacted by the drought. And I attend a number of their events, and it seems like over the last several years, each year they're saying there's less acreage that's going towards crops because the cotton, because they don't have the water. Now, the flip side of this, and I'm gonna tell you guys something that's gonna get me in massive trouble. So I don't know if there are any regulators in the room, but many of you may remember the tsunami that took place that impacted Japan several years ago. As a result of that, they didn't trust their water quality. You know, they had the follow-up incident with the nuclear power plant. So there was a real big issue about water quality in Japan. So where do you think they got water from? From their #1 trading partner, the United States. So from our perspective, one of the things that we are seeing is a high growth of bottled water exported from California to other parts of the world. So brands like Crystal Geyser and several of the others that are actually produced here in California that are great brands are actually exporting a lot of water to various parts of the world simply because in some cases the water quality in those regions has been severely impacted by, in some cases, natural disasters. And others just by some of their own doing. Anyone, and I know Paris has been a big issue in the impact of the terrorist acts in Paris. I was in Paris about a year ago, and just being a tourist, and just sort of walking through the streets, and one of the things that I found was bottled water is called San Francisco fog. Okay, can you imagine that? San Francisco fog. So someone made a play on the fact that you do have fog in San Francisco. So I wouldn't imagine that that's bottled here, but it's a great product in France, San Francisco fog. And it obviously was doing very well because I saw it everywhere. I haven't seen it at all here in the United States. So for those of you that are looking for ideas, I wanted to throw that out.
That is an interesting statement. And I bring this back to what you were talking about earlier, talking about brand and sustainability. We all know we're part of a global economy, a global environment. What happens there does impacts there, and impacts there happen here. I have a similar story. We're at a trade show, the Seoul Food and Hotel Show. Anybody been to the Seoul Food and Hotel Show? One, two maybe, two. All right, so we're representing California products, and we walk past the Canadian booths, and there is a bottled water from Canada. They're sending bottled water to Korea. Well, subsequently going on, we moved to Japan. Same thing, bottled water from Canada going to Japan. And we've learned the same thing happens in China. And it's just amazing to see that there's this movement of goods because North America, we have such a great quality of standard of our food and our beverages and such, but also there's demand overseas. And so there's opportunity. What I'm trying to underline is that there's opportunity. And each and every one of you are here for a purpose. And I believe that purpose is to grow your bottom line or to help others grow their bottom line. Am I correct? Yeah? Okay, is everybody waiting for lunch? Coffee? Come on, come on.
It's just cold in here.
It's cold in here. Well, we're gonna go out there.
Well, I wanted to add just one thing. I've spent a lot of time in Asia, specifically in China, and one of the reasons of why, obviously, U.S. American grown product, whether it is fresh or non-fresh, why are we so successful there is because of the water. The water is highly contaminated in China, and very little farming, and obviously Chinese consumers don't want to consume the product. In our case, I sell fresh, so they don't want to consume the fresh product because obviously it's highly contaminated. So they did a test in one product of watermelons, which have obviously a lot of water, and it's incredible the level of contamination that a Chinese watermelon will have. So at this point, obviously, Chinese, a middle class or higher class Chinese will rather pay 10, 15, 20 US dollars for whatever fresh item as opposed to a Chinese product. So obviously challenges definitely for the growers, but also a lot of opportunities, to explore those markets.
Before we break off, I would like to ask a question, but I also want to make a point is that, have you seen how the internet is playing either a greater role in facilitating new business or inhibiting it, or what's your take on that? Because we're starting to see a lot more B2C. And it's not just in America with Amazon opening Amazon Prime and getting within 2 hours or a day, but we're seeing it globally. So is that impacting? I'd like to end on that question, maybe get a short snippet of your thoughts, and then maybe we can close with that.
Well, prior to the internet, you walked into a fresh fruit sales office and it's nonstop people on the phone, just a hum. Now you walk into a sales office completely silent because they're on the internet. It's all done. Very few phone calls. Everything's done on the internet. All of our paperwork. The paperwork is tremendous that you have to do, so that's simplified that way. And as I mentioned before, we get real-time looks of how our fruit arrives, and we can check the quality and that kind of thing. So it's been a tremendous boon. The internet and the improvements in technology have all made the export business so much easier than it was.
Yeah, I think in the form of communication and information, of course, it's been a tremendous boom. Because in the past, a lot of documentation had to be submitted for approvals and sign-offs and financial documents and things like that. Whereas now, a lot of that stuff can be done electronically, so it makes the process so much faster, so much easier, and a lot easier to track and keep track of. So the internet, of course, has made a lot of the communication delays, because in a lot of cases you got time differences from country to country in various parts of the world. You've got some language differences and translation differences and documentation that has to be done. In the past, you had people physically doing that. Whereas now, you can talk into Google and it'll just translate things for you. You might have to check it, but so a lot of the documentation that's required to move your product in or out of a country is a lot faster than it's ever been. Of course, we are all dealing with things of security. You've got customs and border protection. Even they have kind of gone, their technology game has actually have moved up quite a bit. So a lot of the documentation in the past, we used to have what we used to call agents that go onto the vessel, and they have to go through binders to make sure that all the manifests were correct and all that type of stuff. They're able to get that documentation 10 days before a vessel shows up to the port, and they can approve all that stuff electronically, which helps move cargo through the ports in various parts of the world. So it certainly has been a great benefit to everyone, I think.
Well, I'd like to invite you to give our panel a welcome, or a farewell round of applause.